Thank you. When my two sons were born, I never expected that one day I would be sitting in hospital and in a room on the left-hand side of the corridor, one of my sons would be fighting for his life, and in a room on the right-hand side of the corridor, my other son would be dead. I never imagined when my two sons were born that I would entirely give up on life, not wanting to live anymore. I never imagined when my two sons were born the lessons they would teach me about hope and love that would lead me to this point today. When my older son Neil was born in 2008, at just 3 days old, he was diagnosed with a rare condition which left him with over 30% brain damage. We were heartbroken. His prognosis was poor, and he would later be diagnosed with incurable epilepsy. Seeing our heartache, a consultant suggested that we have another child, a child that may bring Neil some hope, some joy, and some love. In a sense, we were given a prescription with Dev's name written on it, a dose of pure, innocent love, and that's exactly who he was. My two boys shone brightly in our lives, filling our days with their mischievous adventures, their laughter, and their smiles. Their light and love filled our days with hope, happiness, and we appreciated every single second that we had with them. As the years went on, Neil's health continued to decline, and we were told that one day he may not wake up due to his seizures. But we never gave up. Dev's response was, "Mummy, we can do this." In May 2018, Neil's health suddenly declined, and we had to rush him into hospital. Dev came later in the evening on the 31st of May to say goodbye to his brother, something that we had all been prepared for years. Dev jumped into Neil's bed, like he always did. He hugged his brother tight, like he always did, and gently kissed him on the forehead and told him all about his day, like he always did. He then said goodnight and left to go home. The car that Dev was travelling in, home, stopped for unknown reasons, and a lorry crashed into the back of the car, killing Dev instantly. I wasn't with my baby that night, but that version of me died with him too. Neil pulled through, but through his grief, he lost his ability to speak and walk. And over the next 8 months, I went through Dev's birthday, through Christmas, through Halloween, barely surviving, barely existing, and barely feeling like a human being. I had no purpose or reason to exist at this point. I had given up. So in January 2019, after rationalizing a deeply irrational thought, I decided to have a very dignified conversation with my husband, letting him know of my plans. Now, I didn't need his permission at this point, and he knew I didn't. He had been afraid to come home every single day for the past year, not knowing what to expect. And so he did what he always did. He reminded me of love and hope. He hit my survival button. He said something so simple that it shook me back into reality. He said, "There may be so many people out there feeling just like you are right now. Maybe you can help." What saved me was my feelings towards humanity. What saved me was my feelings towards my fellow human beings. What saved me was my feelings towards you. And my husband, of course. And my therapist. I don't know what I was expecting, but I wasn't quite expecting this. The incredible and intense feeling of loneliness and isolation that came in the following month. I kept looking to people around me for hope and help and support, but the truth is, everyone else had moved on, understandably. They were all living their lives, and I was stuck. But I knew I needed to do something to push myself forward. I knew I needed to do this myself because this was my grief and it was my journey. And so I slowly started to venture out into the real world, but I kept encountering these phrases that would knock me back ever so slightly. I'm so sorry for your loss, but it happened for a reason. I'm so sorry for your loss, but he's in a better place right now. Now I know these phrases came from a place of love, hope, and gentle and kindness. But what really got me were the phrases that came in between. So you're going through the depression phase right now. Maybe you're in denial. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross wrote a book in 1969 describing the 5 stages of grief. Now, what many people don't know is that this was actually based on those who were at the last stages of their life and was not for those who were grieving. And I had a look at this cycle of grief, and visually it was a cycle and a circle, and it just didn't represent what I was going through. I didn't feel that everyone went through all of these stages of grief, and I didn't really want to be going round and round in a circle either. And so I thought, I'm going to think of my own method to go forward. By taking the tiniest steps forward, I developed my own method to echo the rebirth process after grief. My method is based on going through the stages of rebirth from infancy to toddler to schooler to teenager and young adult again. Bear with me on this one. And so I started at the infancy stage, and like a baby, I cried all the time. My tears defied me, and there was no way of controlling it. I even remember breaking down in a supermarket when I saw a display of pomegranates, which were Dev's favourite fruit. This part, for me, was in fight or flight mode, where I was ready to exit any social situation when I felt fear or anxiety or couldn't cope. But that was okay, because I got lots of naps. The next stage was the toddler phase, a phase best described as selfish, and not in a bad way. This for me represented my own small world, where I started to draw my own boundaries, and just like a toddler starts exploring whether they can jump off a sofa or push your buttons by drawing on the walls, I started saying no to everyone. I drew my boundaries and started learning what I can and cannot do, taking into account the extreme exhaustion and memory loss, which I still have today, and relearning things again and again. I even remember looking at people thinking, how are they putting sentences together? Something that I had clearly done for over 30 years of my life and was now having to learn all over again. But I didn't give up. I then progressed onto the schooler age, and I was transported back to my younger self, the one who was bullied, the one who never fit in, and the one who was always left out, the one who was reluctant to walk back into the classroom, not knowing if anyone would sit next to me or be my friend, the shy little girl who was scared to leave the classroom at lunchtime because she wasn't sure if anyone was going to play with her in the playground, suddenly became me not wanting to leave the house. I then moved on to the teenage age. And unlike my teenage self, this version of me was very bold and brave. I transformed from my pajamas into my loungewear. I looked at myself in the mirror for the first time in a year. I thought I had already hit rock bottom, and there was nowhere else for me to go but up and forward. No one else was going to do this for me, because this was my journey, this was my grief. I had to do this. And so I started learning new things, creating new ideas, and seeing what I liked and disliked. I started to slowly fall in love with this new version of myself. I then progressed into the young adult stage. And I started questioning myself. What's my purpose? And where can I spend all the unspent love that I have for Dev, for my baby? And one day as I was going upstairs to bed in the evening, instead I bravely went back into Dev's room, which was a big step. And as I walked in, I saw his toys, his books, his clothes, exactly as he'd left them. His towel and his socks were on the floor, exactly as he'd left them. And so I sat on his bed, holding Daniel, his favourite teddy that he slept with every single night, and just one thought came to my mind. Dev came into this world with nothing, and he left this world with nothing. And yet he left me with a lifetime of love and memories. And so if I could make a small difference and spread some love and hope in my journey, that's all I could ask for, right? And so I decided to make a change. I decided to step forward. I started campaigning for safer roads. And 1 year after I'd had that conversation with my husband, instead I walked into the House of Parliament and proposed 19 policy changes to make roads safer. 18 were agreed to, with a commitment of £500 million. And from there I have continued to campaign with Dev's name my every breath. Grief is not just the loss of a loved one. Anyone can go through grief. If you've been through a divorce, suffering from a long-term illness, lost a job, you may have suffered from grief. It could have been short-lived or long-lived. Journey. It's what you've been through, and it's what has got you through to today. And so when I was looking at that cycle of grief, that if you leave point A, it didn't matter which direction you went in, you would always leave point A to reach back to point A again. My method gave me an exit to move forward and move out of that. Now I know I will never reach 100% of happiness, and that's okay. I lost my son. I'm at 92%. The last 8% is my Dev. It represents him, it represents my loss, and it lets me hold him close to my heart every single day. It allows me to have my sad days, my bad days, and my bed days, as I like to call them. I don't have to leave him behind. I can take him every day with me. For you, your number may be final and decisive. Your percentage may be something that you work on every day, or it could be something that is definite and the one that you choose to live with. For me, it was about empowering myself and taking each tiny step forward every single day. I never knew grief could be positive. I never knew I could turn it into something positive, because in that fog, I was suffocating. But there was hope. and I had to do it myself. So, what now? Well, I'm finally at point B. And I can finally say, Dev, we've got this. Thank you.